Hi students, welcome back to our English class. We are studying the lesson The Best Investment I Ever Made by A.J. Cronin. Let's see the review of the previous class. On the second day of the narrator's voyage, he noticed that one of the passengers was watching him closely. As he was not interested in a conversation with him, he ignored the passenger. The following afternoon, the narrator saw him again. Urged by his wife, the fellow voyager approached the narrator. They were Mr. and Mrs. John, but he couldn't reveal the identity of the fellow voyagers. Mr. John told the narrator that he was a solicitor by profession and was the director of charitable organization devoted to the care of boys and girls who had fallen under the ban of the law. We discussed up till this. Next we move to the seventh paragraph. As he spoke with real feeling, I got a vivid picture of the work these two people were doing. I learned how they took derelict adolescents from the juvenile courts and placing them in a healthy environment, healed them in mind and body, and sent them back into the world. Spoke with them, and he got a clear picture of the work that they were doing. He learned how they took derelict adolescents. Derelict means in a bad condition. Adolescence means a young person between 13 and 19 years old. They took such children from juvenile courts. A juvenile court is a court which deals with the crimes committed by young people. Then they placed them in a healthy environment and healed them in mind and body and sent them back into the world. Healed means made them good. They were given training in a useful handicraft which made them fit to take their place as worthy members of the community. That is, they were given training in some handicraft so that they could live as worthy citizens in this world. It was a work of redemption that stirred the heart, and I asked what had directed his life into this channel. Here, redemption means a state of being saved from the power of evil. That is, it was a work of saving or charity that stirred the heart. So, Cronin asked them what had directed his life into this channel. Next paragraph. The question had a strange effect upon him. He took a sharp breath and exclaimed, "You still do not remember me?" I shook my head. To the best of my belief, I had never in my life seen him before. While Cronin asked the question that had a strange effect upon Mr. John, he took a deep breath and exclaimed, surprised, and replied, if he still did not remember him, then Cronin shook his head as no. To Cronin, he had never seen him in his life before. Next, it is ninth paragraph. I have wanted to get in touch with you for many years, he went on under increasing stress. But I was never able to bring myself to do so. Then, bending near, he spoke a few words tensely in my ear. That slowly the veils parted. My thoughts sped back a quarter of a century, and with a start, I remembered the sole occasion when I had seen this man before. John said that he had wanted to get in touch with him for many years. He wished to meet Cronin for many years. John continued under increasing stress that he was not able to meet him. Then, bending near, he said something in Cronin's ear. At that time, slowly, veils parted. Veils means covering, parted means two things move away from each other. Here, veils parted means the narrator came to know who the man was. His thoughts sped back. Sped back means move quickly. A quarter of century, that is 25 years. His thoughts moved quickly back to the instant happened 25 years ago. He remembered the sole occasion when he had seen this man before. Sole means only one. We move to next paragraph. I was a young doctor at the time and just set up a practice in working class district of London. On a foggy November night towards 1 o'clock, I was awakened by a loud banging on the door. Hurriedly, I was on some clothes and went downstairs. It was a sergeant of police in a dripping helmet and cape, mistily outlined on the doorstep. A suicide case, he told me abruptly. In the lodgings around the corner, I had better come at once. Cronin, think about the incident happened 25 years ago. At the time, Cronin was a young doctor. He had begun his practice in a working class of London. On a foggy November around 1 o'clock, he was awakened by a loud banging on the door. Banging means hitting something noisily. Suddenly, he threw on clothes and went downstairs. Here, throw on means to put on. Okay. It was a sergeant of police. He was in dripping helmet. Dripping helmet means wearing a wet helmet. And a cape. Cape means an outer garment. Misty. Misty means not clear. Outlined means appeared. When Cronin opened the door, he saw a sergeant of police there. Suddenly, he told that there was a suicide case and he should go with him at once. Abruptly means suddenly. 11th paragraph. We walked the short distance in silence, even our footsteps muffled by the fog, and turned into the narrow entrance of an old building. That is, they walked in silence, even their footsteps made silent by the fog. Muffled means made silent. They turned into the narrow entrance of an old building. As we mounted the creaking staircase, my nostrils were stung by the thick, sweet odor of illuminating gas. Cronin says that when he climbed the staircase, he felt the sick, sweet smell of illuminating gas. On the upper story, the agitated lady showed us to a bare little attic where, stretched on a narrow bed, lay the body of a young man. On the upper story of the old building, the agitated landlady, the agitated means a nervous or worried landlady, showed them a bare lit attic. Attic means a small room just below the roof. There they saw the body of a young man. Although apparently lifeless, there remained the barest chance that the youth was not quite beyond recall. With the surgeon's help, I began the work of resuscitation. For an entire hour, we labored without success. Despite our most strenuous exertions, it appeared useless. Then, as we were about to give up, completely exhausted, there broke from the patient a shallow, convulsive gasp. Half an hour of redoubled efforts, and we had the youth sitting up, gazing at us dazedly. Slowly, he seemed to be realizing the horror of his situation. Although in appearance he was lifeless, there remained a slightest chance that the youth was not quite beyond recall. With the surgeon's help, he began to the work of resuscitation, which means the emergency procedure to bring someone back to life. They tried to revive him for almost 1 hour. Despite our most strenuous exertions, it appeared useless. Here, strenuous means needing great effort and energy. Exertions means work needing strength. They took great effort to bring him back to life, but it appeared useless. Then, as we were about to give up, completely exhausted, there broke from the patient a shallow convulsive gasp. When they were about to give up, because they were very tired, the patient started breathing. Convulsive means a sudden and impossible to control. Gasp means a quick and deep breath. So they tried again, and in half an hour, the youth was sitting up. Looking at them in a surprised manner, he soon realized the horror of the situation. As he regained his strength, he told us his story. His parents were dead, and uncle had found him a position as a clerk in a London solicitor's office. He had been in the city only 6 months. Utterly friendless, he had fallen victim to the loose society of the streets. He had made bad companions, and like a young fool, eager to taste pleasure far beyond his means, he began to bet on horses. When he regained his strength, he told them his story. His parents were dead. His uncle helped him to get the job of a clerk in a London lawyer's office. As he had no friends, he had fallen into bad company. He started enjoying the pleasures of life beyond his means. Here, means is income. Soon he had lost all his small savings, had pledged his belongings, and owed the bookmaker a disastrous amount. In an effort to recoup, he had taken a sum of money from his office safe for a final gamble that he was assured was certain to win. But this last resort had failed. Terrified of the prosecution that must follow, sick at heart, sunk in despair, he had shut himself in his room and turned on the gas. Soon he lost all his savings and he faced a lot of debt. In an effort to get money, he stole money from his office safe to make a final bet. He again lost. He was desperate and returned to the room. He wanted to die, so he turned on the gas. Here, recoup means recover. Prosecution means trial. Afraid of the trial that must follow, he tried to commit suicide. A long bar of silence stopped in the little attic when he concluded this halting confession. Then gruffly, the surgeon asked how much he had stolen. 7 pounds 10 shillings. The answer sounded pitiful. For this paltry sum, he had almost thrown away his life. When the man concluded his halting confession, a long bar of silence was there in the room. Then, gruffly mean in rough and unfriendly manner. In gruffly, the surgeon asked how much he had stolen. He replied that he had stolen 7 pounds and 10 shillings. For this paltry sum, for the small amount, he had almost thrown away his life. There was a pause. The three of us, the surgeon, the landlady, and me, as the sole witnesses of the near tragedy, had the same unspoken thoughts in our minds. We decided to give the young man a fresh start. The landlady, the policeman, and the narrator were the only witnesses to this confession. So, together, they decided to give the young man a fresh start. The surgeon, at considerable risk to his job, resolved to make no report upon the case so that no court proceedings would result. The landlady offered a month's free board until he should get upon his feet again, while I, making perhaps the least contribution, came forward with 7 pounds 10 shillings for him to put back in the office safe. The policeman agreed not to report the case so that there would be no trial. The landlady offered a month's free board to the youth. The narrator gave him the 7 pounds and 10 shillings to put back into the safe. The ship moved on through the still darkness of the night. There was no need of speech. With a tender gesture, Mrs. S. had taken her husband's hand, and as we sat in silence, I could not but reflect that it was the best investment I had made in my life. It had paid me no dividends in worldly goods, but had turned out to be immensely profitable. It stood out against all the bad investments I had made throughout the years, those foolish speculations for material gain, producing only anxiety, disappointment, and frustration. The ship moved. There was no need for any speech. With a tender gesture, Mrs. John took her husband's hand. They sat in silence. He realized that it was the best investment he had ever made in his life. It had paid him no dividends in worldly goods. It had made many investments for material gain, but he had lost. The losses brought him only anxiety, disappointment, and frustration. The author may not have gained any material benefit from this investment, but still it was the greatest investment he ever made in his life. There ends the story. Read the textbook well. If you had any doubt, please ask me. Thank you.